This is Framework. I am Al Schwartz. Hey, John Bernard.
Yeah. Hey.
I got beef with Martin Scorcese.
Oh, okay. What do you do?
Well, he sort of, I don't know if he did it, but he colluded with, or allowed himself to be made into the defender of true cinema in all capital letters. And that kind of rubs me the wrong way. And then he made Killers of the Flower Moon like an hour and a half too long.
All right. Great. This is great. Coming hard at Martin Scorcese. This is the kind of content that we need right now. All right. I like Martin Scorsese quite a bit, and I really like Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't think it's as good as a lot of people seem to, but I have a feeling I will be the defender for this episode.
What do you have an impression of the consensus on Killers? Is it? I mean, it seems to me that that critically, that Joe Blow audiences don't.
It's a huge bomb. It's a huge bomb.
3.5 hour, historical epics. But critics, from what I've seen, seem to mostly be on the side of this is a masterpiece.
Yes. That was kind of like almost a unanimous opinion when this was released in October. It's sitting, over 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, I believe. It is, everyone's saying best of the year, best of the top, Oscar contender, all these things. I mean, I think it was kind of way too big of a bomb to be a front runner there, but it's going to be on a lot of people's top 10 list. Going to be a lot of people's film of the year this year. Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, and
this, of course, is a 3.5 hour. I don't know. Is this a Western exactly? It's a historical drama about the systematic murder of Osage people, and
it's more of a gangster movie than a Western.
Yeah,
and how it plays, I feel, which is fine. That's Scorsese playing in his wheelhouse, or in a way. I mean, I don't even say there's controversy, but there's been tempests in various teapots about whether it's okay for Scorsese to tell this story as a non-native person.
Yeah, should the Osage people be making this film?
Yeah,
and I mean, this is a movie about white people, though. This is
yeah. I mean, that's like, I figure it's kind of mute because Osage people are not going to make this movie. I mean, they might like to, but they're not going to get the opportunity. They're not going to get the at-bat. And that's not wholly Martin Scorsese's fault. So I figure good on him for taking a swing. And I mean, the other part of that knock, though, is that he tells their story by making it about the white criminals, which is what he knows. And I don't know. Like, I think that's generally the type of thing of like filmmakers bringing material to them and making it something like, putting their stamp on it. Generally a good thing. It gets a little murkier when you bring like racial elements into that, bringing material to you. But
there's no one size fits all answer for this. Like if this is the film Martin Scorsese wants to make, at 80 years old, I think he's earned the right to tell the story of the white criminals that did a thing, like that seems to be his in on this. And he has a point. There's a reason for making this movie, and that I want to see what he says about this, what his thoughts are on this thing. This is a guy who can make the fuck out of a movie. He's one of the all-time greats. Right, Al?
Yes, that is a thing. Look, I'll say some harsh words about Scorsese here, but it's always with the sort of backdrop of like, but he's made several of the best movies ever made. So, he is a legit master of the form, which is part of what sharpens my frustration with some of his recent output, and how indulgent I find it. It's Killers of the Flower Moon is so punishing that it feels weird to call it indulgent. But
it is indulgent. I mean, there's no reason he can't communicate everything he communicates in this film in less than 3.5 hours. I have to say, he's too good a filmmaker to need everything. I think you could probably cut an hour and a half out of this, and it would have the same cumulative emotional effect that it did for me.
That's an entire movie.
Yeah,
like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really a lot when you say this movie could lose 20 minutes. Like that's an eternity of screen time. That's, I don't know,
yeah,
an entire episode of Modern Family, but an hour and a half, that's a lot, man. And
Yeah.
The Irishman, even worse. I mean, not necessarily worse, but longer.
I think I like Irishman more as a film, ultimately. I think that is kind of extraordinary in a lot of ways, but it is part of this old man era of Scorsese where he makes just these sprawling films, these monstrous epics. It's it's those two, and Silence falls into that category.
Sure.
And you could probably even put Wolf of Wall Street in there. I mean, the tone is so different, but it's a 3-hour film. You know,
and that doesn't need to be a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
The similarity there, other than Leonardo DiCaprio as a criminal, is just these are 3-hour to 3-hour plus movies where it feels like there's a lot of scenes of DiCaprio just doing the same shit over and over again over the course of years.
Mm-hmm. I happen to love Wolf of Wall Street. I think it's an incredible film with an incredible energy for being, Scorsese's, I don't know, what is his 30th film or whatever the hell it was. For being a film that moves as fast as that does, to come from Scorsese is impressive, I would say. Diminishing returns in that regard now. I'm kind of thinking like you got to strap in for these now. I'll probably never be revisiting Silence, for example, at the length.
Right.
And Irishman, I have not come back to either, despite really liking aspects of it. It's just a lengthy film, and I think Killers of the Flower Moon is very much going to fall into that category. Which is not to say that rewatchability is the most important thing that a movie can aspire to. But
Scorsese's greats do have that.
They sure do. Yeah. And I mean, I don't even think it's entirely a length thing. Like, I find Casino a very rewatchable film. It's about 3 hours long. These don't have that kind of vim and vigor to them. And I get the point. I get the point so hard over in all these films very early on.
And length certainly the reason why I haven't revisited Wolf since the theaters, where I liked it. But now I sort of see Wolf of Wall Street as the tipping point for me into my gripes with Scorsese, because at least that one is cast properly. But that is where the wholly unjustified runtime becomes an issue. I guess, do we have any more to say about Killers of Flower Moon? I mean,
oh sure, yeah. Like I think it's an interesting film. I think it's a good film. If I made a top 10 of the year list, it would be on my top 10 of the year, probably in the bottom half of it. But I think it works basically, and there's things that are wonderful about it. There's sort of a sumptuous quality of seeing a period film that is this well appointed and this well shot, and it just it is transporting in that way. It's great, and there's some incredible performances in it. I think De Niro is as good as he's been in a while. I don't know, he's actually incredible in The Irishman, but other than that, like, this is probably the best thing he's done in 10 years. And Lily Gladstone, of course, is great. I don't think
Lily Gladstone should win Best Actress, probably. It's a really great performance. And the guy with like the glass eye that DiCaprio impresses into murdering somebody should probably win Best Supporting Actor. At least Best Supporting Face. Just
anytime that guy's on screen. Character in the face, I suppose.
Yes. Just miles and miles of character in that face.
There's a lot of that in this movie. A lot of authenticity in most of the characters that you're looking at, which makes this one guy.
Yeah, this is my gripe. Okay, that all that authenticity is ruined by the just glaringly inauthentic main character, main performance. Because I think DiCaprio is flat out terrible in this movie. It's horribly cast and genuinely bad in performance in this movie.
Yeah, I don't like DiCaprio in this either. So I don't know. I feel like I almost agree with you too much on some of these points. But no, I don't.
This is the main problem our podcast faces. Our disagreements are usually matters of degree.
Yeah. I don't think he's awful in this, but I don't think he's good. I kind of think this is an Emperor Has No Clothes kind of moment for DiCaprio performances. He is all wrong for this role, and the thing he's doing in this is very mannered, very performative, and not at all what everyone else on screen is doing. He's doing something from like 1940s film. It's sort of a theatrical performance.
Yeah,
and I don't get it. I think it doesn't work.
It's becomes apparent here that that DiCaprio can play dumb. He can't necessarily play lower class. This is like he's got one swing to try and play like poor or uneducated or whatever, and it's just to do this squinty, mumbly, dumbass shtick, and it's not right for this role or this world, but it's the only way he has to access the lower classes. Is how it feels to me. Like he can play. I mean, he's done convincing like. I don't know, like he's great in The Departed. He's great in Wolf of Wall Street. Mm-hmm. He and even like The Great Gatsby. I haven't seen that version, but
no, he works.
All those are sort of like kind of lower class people pretending to be upper class, or like at least like they are strivers in some way. That they have like one foot in the upper class world, but they're kind of like doing an aggressive impersonation of what they think wealthy people are like. Less of The Departed than the other two, but there's something of that in the fabric of the Departed character, and that chip on the shoulder that he can bring to that can work. And even like, I guess his most famous role is Titanic, right? Where he's the lower class guy, but he's a manic pixie dream boy version of like idealized rose colored glass memory of this person. So he's playing a matinee idol there.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
It's not a real person. So here this is a movie that calls for a real person. It's and for this character to be about demonstrating the banality of evil and how, you can just slouch along into the worst kinds of evil possible if you're not, morally vigilant.
Well, I mean, I think the problem I have here, and especially the problem with making a 3.5 hour movie around this character as your central character, is that the answer to what is wrong with him is he's kind of stupid. Like that's the big reason that he goes along with all this, is because he's an unambitious, kind of stupid person. I mean, well, he's ambitious. He's just, he's
he's not. He's greedy, but not ambitious.
Yeah, right. He likes the idea of money just fine, I guess, and will go along with just about anything presented to him without much thought about. And I know this is all the point. This is all what Scorsese is driving at with this character, and why they've made him the most the lead of the film is because he finds that dichotomy and that sort of way to compartmentalize your evil fascinating and indicative of a natural kind of character and trend. And that's what the movie's about. And that's great, but you can't hang a hat on this character sucks. And the performance doesn't work, like, he swapped roles with Jesse Plemons. Plemons was supposed to play this guy, and DiCaprio would be the cop, and the cop, of course, or the FBI agent, and the FBI agent would, of course, be a much more important character who drove the story more, and discovers what's going on and who's doing the Osage murders. And that was the original idea for adaptation that more closely reflects the book it's based on, from what I understand. And they found this character so interesting that they said, well, no, now he's the main character and DiCaprio's playing him. And I think that fucked up the movie a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the impulse there was we make this all about the FBI investigation, then it is less about the horrendous crime against the Osage people than about the white guy who wrote it and made it right.
That's true. Yeah, it's not good either, really.
And so I understand not wanting to go that route. The problem is but okay, we're going to change the entire movie around, but we're going to keep DiCaprio as our star. And this is the crux of my other big Scorsese knock, is that he's casting his movies all wrong lately because he just wants to work with his pet actors. And it destroys The Irishman and it ruins this movie for me, is what it comes down to. Because here's the other thing. De Niro also really miscast in this movie. He and DiCaprio's 20 years too old for the part. De Niro is 30 to 40 years too old for the part, at least 40 years historically. However, De Niro's performance is much better.
Yeah,
I think he kind of makes it work just in spite of itself. And part of that's just that it's, 45 in 1920 is maybe plays a little more similar to like ultra rich and 80 in 2023.
Yes.
Like you could be kind of a rich old man at 45 in 1920. But you can't be a 47-year-old man even a youthful looking 47 like DiCaprio and be playing like a fresh faced 23-year-old straight out of the war, it's wet behind the ears and doesn't have any direction in his life. Like, no, like, this is a grown ass man.
Yeah, there's a Dewey Cox quality to it, and it seems obvious that this guy needed to be, a young man,
Right.
And I guess DiCaprio is probably better equipped to do that than most 47-year-old movie stars, even. But like, still, we have a relationship with him. We know.
Why are we in this place to begin with? Why aren't we just casting 30-year-olds?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Not even 22-year-olds. I'm not saying you have to go to the actual historical age. Like Plemons could have made this work, I think. But Plemons is just a terrific actor.
What'd they spend on this movie, though? $100 million more than that? I know. A lot. I know that. Yeah. You don't do it if Plemons plays this role. Like the movie's losing a ton of money anyway, I guess. But they're not letting Plemons play this role and spending that kind of money on it and letting it be 3.5 hours long. If it is perhaps if it is an Apple streaming limited series, which it feels like it wanted to be, then maybe Plemons can play that role, and he's awesome in it because he is who you cast in this as this character. Yeah. Like his qualities as an actor are much better suited to playing this role.
Yes, I would agree. And even that's aging the character up. Like he's not Clemens is not a spring chicken anymore. He must be 35,
right?
And the character is supposed to be in his early to mid 20s. But so, why does any of this matter? I guess is the other question. And that sort of it brings me back. All right, I gotta give you my Scorsese theory now. That what's getting me riled up about
this. Are we about to talk about Marvel films, by the way?
Yes, we're definitely going to talk about Marvel movies, and I don't know. Like, all right, I got to lay all this out for you because I need to know how deranged it sounds when I say it out loud to another person. Yeah. But okay, we're all familiar at this point with Scorsese's constantly being now asked for pull quotes about superhero movies, and because he's not a fan of superhero movies or the Marvel machine, and he has said so. And I would even say like he has railed against them exactly. This is part of what gets me annoyed right off the bat is I know I'm being manipulated into being annoyed by these quotes with like, selective cropping and headlining of the key knocks on whatever, the Marvel machine. And I know somewhere in my head that if I read all the full interviews, he's gonna be talking more about a style of production than he is about a genre when he puts down superhero movies. And I know that I will agree with the basics of the critiques of the process that he's laying out, but it still manages to come across as just genre snobbery in some way, which is a thing that really rubs me the wrong way.
I mean, you're not alone in feeling this way, for sure.
Right.
There's a cottage industry of trying to construct a war between Scorsese and as the vanguard of Hollywood, of old Hollywood filmmakers. I know others have kind of come up and been like, yeah, Scorsese's absolutely right. Coppola has even used stronger words, but no.
Sure. Like Paul Schrader probably has too. And that's why I want nothing else from Paul Schrader.
But Scorsese is head of the pack on this because I'm not entirely sure why. I guess he's that much esteem and has been that forward in what he's saying. But it's like you said, it's mostly kind of mild and blown out of proportion.
Yeah, he's not the vanguard because he has the strongest take on it, actually. No. And I know that. But he's just become the face of that and the voice of that. But the reason why I get annoyed with Scorsese about this rather than Paul Schrader or Coppola is, I think he's, fundamentally probably right about when he critiques the role of these like big franchise blockbuster machines and the deterioration of the film medium and all that. But because, it's gotten to a point for as much as I have defended Marvel movies on here with you a dozen times and enjoy quite a few superhero movies. Yeah. Like they're choking franchise filmmaking and big IP filmmaking is choking out other forms of filmmaking.
Yes, and he's right. Yes.
It's not just that, because it's also a lot of streaming and just the theatrical model no longer working. And it's more that superhero movies are the one form of film that still works in the theatrical model of the 20th century. And that's not necessarily the genre's fault exactly. But again, he's not wrong. It's having this effect. It's negative effect. And I do agree, especially as the product has been getting worse over the last few years.
That's the thing. It's all becoming very homogenized. It's all becoming very, very similar. Yes. Like what's the last Star Wars movie that anyone liked? Honestly, like it's been a while. Like,
I mean, half of us liked Rogue One, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or that. What's the last one that everyone liked? Return of the Jedi, maybe.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, did everyone liked Force Awakens when it came out? I think its star has fallen. I mean, everybody but me. I was ahead of the curve on hating that movie out the gate, but it seems like its star has fallen a bit with Rise of Skywalker. I mean, just of all, what a historically bad movie for the way that it drug down an otherwise beloved movie by being so bad. Like that's a rare feat.
I bring up Star Wars because that's not even superheroes exactly, and it's still the same thing.
No, but it's about IP.
Yeah. It's the sort of the choking out of anything other than these theme park rides, as he calls them, and he's not wrong. You know, you go back even to just 20 years ago, or let's say 25 years ago. Put us squarely in the 90s. There were so many different kinds of movies coming out from studios. You had serial killer thrillers, romantic comedies, family dramas, stuff that just does not happen anymore. Or if it does, it happens on streaming and there's less quality control and you don't have, it feels like content as opposed to a movie. And that is undeniable now at this point. So like, and people hate superhero from like all year, people have been just complaining about the DC universe, the Marvel universe, the Star Wars universe. Like, we don't even like these things ourselves anymore. I don't understand why Scorsese is getting all the shit over this. Like, or why they even keep bothering about it. We know what he feels like. Of course he feels that way. He made The Last Temptation of Christ. I mean,
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But of course we know why. It's because we'll click on it and get annoyed at the people that agree with him and at the article itself for making me click on it. But it's still going to track my click just the same, whether I'm mad that I did it or not. Well, the other thing is, though, everything you're laying out, though, this is what I'm talking about, like process and filmmaking. Like, none of that I think is inherently tied to genre. It's just that superheroes and Star Wars are the genres that are at the forefront of this whole process, which is killing us, which is the franchising and IP stuff, and how everything is a shared universe and a prequel and a spinoff now. And the problem with that is not that it has the trappings of any given genre attached to it. It's just that it becomes irrevocably backward and inward looking over time.
And it's also it's one flavor.
What I find most.
It's one flavor. It's cartoons for little boys for everyone. Hey, don't little girls also like cartoons for little boys? It's we're just kind of trying to have that for all our movies. It seems to be, and I think that's what's pissing him off more than anything.
Well, it turns out like Chinese people like cartoons for little boys, and that that extends the lifespan financially of what these things can do. So these things, I guess that's the other reason why those travel well overseas. Right. Part of why they are choking everything else out.
Killers of the Flower Moon is not going to make any money in China. Sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. It says it would feel completely irrelevant to anybody in Cambodia. But the question is, why does any of this matter? Because if it's just a matter of, there will be trends that genres, the Western had its day and became, very high output, low effort over time, and fell to the side, and people started making different types of movies. And whatever, the superhero movies its day has been a lot longer than I thought it would be back in 2003 or 2008 when it really took off. But I would say whatever. They're not going to stop making stuff, and people will get bored with this type of stuff and start consuming other types of stuff. And that's fine. It's just the life cycle of how culture goes. But why does any of this matter to me? And this is where I might start sounding like a crank, but I worry about American culture more generally, as I've sort of gotten at with you a few times before. But my big anxiety as a parent, I would say, is that for reasons that are completely outside of my ability to control myself, I am just doomed to leave my children a worse country than the one that I was handed. And
yep.
At its heart, the reason that the thing that cannot be, I don't see any way to fix about this decline, is that we are just in a stage of a late stage empire where we're looking backward instead of looking forward. And, that this infects the movie industry, it infects politics, and these things feed on each other and the culture generally, but that in the twilight of our empire, we're focused on regaining or clinging to the successes of our past. And so we get prequels and spin-offs and expansions of things that hit big in the 70s and 80s or whenever. And what that seems to ignore to me is that those things hit big at a time when we were more excited about the process of growing and expanding and investing in the future of our, intellectual property, or of education of roads and livable wages and things that were going to make, the country sustain itself over time. And now it feels like we aren't creating new things anymore. We used to build shit in this country type of thing. But more so than that, we're just like recreating and rebooting things that worked decades ago. And that's all anybody's plans for making anything better are. And yeah, superhero movies and Star Wars are a factor in that. But the other big factor, I think, in all that is gerontocracy. That this is part of the reason why we're in this pickle is because the baby boomers just live so goddamn long and have not given up the reins of power. So we're going to have, there's going to be a whole generation coming after them that might just get skipped over in terms of creating their own culture, in terms of wielding real political power, because we might jump from being ruled by 80-year-olds down to 60-year-olds and just miss a generation. But I don't know. So my beef with Scorsese, I guess, the reason why I'm resistant to him as the sword of truth defending true cinema against, the ravages of franchise filmmaking is because I look at those quotes from him and I think, yeah, but you're part of this problem too. Like, just because you don't put capes on the old farts in your movies doesn't mean you aren't contributing to the downward spiral of American exceptionalism in the same way that Ant-Man 3 is. Or not in the same way, but as much as Ant-Man 3 is. Because you just won't put anybody but De Niro in your movie.
De Niro is not the problem. Okay, for Irishmen, we're talking Irishmen, right? I could make a cogent, creative argument as to why you would cast those specific old guys in those roles. And
I don't buy that argument at all.
I understand that, and it is about being old, though. The whole movie is about being an old fucking guy and looking back and having massive regrets about how you lived your life. That's the sort of film an old man like Scorsese, should be telling, right? That is the perspective he brings as a master of the craft in his twilight years. I don't know that it serves him all the time, but in that particular film, I get it. I don't really have that argument for Killers of the Flower Moon. He's able to get it made.
I think The Irishman is a bigger offender here because it goes to those extra lengths of using, new space age technology. The one thing that we're like, where we are really breaking new ground and making advances in technology, we're using it to just make sure that we don't have to put anybody but Robert De Niro in a movie ever again. And we don't have to, that's like I'm saying, is this the most important in and of itself element of being ruled by the old, that we don't get new movie stars under the age of 40 anymore? No, that's not like in itself the worst part of it, but it is I think
part of it.
It's a symptom.
Yeah.
And no movie has gone to the lengths The Irishman has to make that problem worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, as a one-off, though, as just here's new technology. I'm playing around with it. I'm keeping my eye on what the new developments are as a student of film. Martin Scorcese, he's gonna, like, the same reason he does Hugo in 3D at the time he does. He's trying to do the new stuff. He's trying to keep abreast of what's going on, which is laudable for a man of his age and entrenched kind of reputation. He is doing things that are both new and personal still at his age. And they're the kind of things nobody else can do because no one else will fund these sort of projects. He just has a name that can get silence made. And I want him to do that, though. I want that, he's in a unique position.
I want to parse something there, though, because, I'll give you, certainly you said he's doing things that are new and personal. And personal, sure. I will commend that. No studio was pressuring him to make silence. We can say that for fucking sure.
Yeah.
And he's doing things that are new, but this is the thing. Like you can certainly spin a way that Killers of the Flower Moon is stretching himself culturally, except then by a half measure because he still bends it back to the white criminals he knows. And my beef is that, he takes a step towards doing something new, but then once you use all the old ass actors, you're not doing something new. Like cast somebody new and cast somebody new who is appropriate to the new material. Like, I mean, DiCaprio was perfect for Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And perfect in The Departed. I think The Departed is probably his best performance in my book. But
Departed is the only one I think where he successfully and convincingly played the badass that he would like to project.
A tough guy. Yeah.
I don't think he's ever really pulled that off otherwise, despite trying multiple times. Like it's his best action guy performance. He just doesn't do that generally. So
if we start not throwing shade at the Revenant, we're going to be here all day. So.
Yeah. Well, case in point, here's my thing on him, by the way, sidebar on DiCaprio. I think his issue is he's just a comedic actor. Like he's good in comedies, not good in dramas. That's how I feel about him. Like in modern day. I mean, what are his good performances? It's Wolf of Wall Street. It's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's Django Unchained. Oh. It's he's even really good in that End of the World movie with Don't Look Up. He's great.
I saw that one.
Yeah. It's not you don't have to, but he's very funny in it. It's his serious performances I don't think work anymore.
Yeah, because I think The Departed was the last serious performance of his that I liked. I mean,
I like him in Shutter Island, I guess, but that's
I don't like that movie.
15 years old anyway.
Yeah, that's even older. Mm-hmm. Well, the Tarantino ones are interesting actually because you're right. Like I wasn't thinking of those as comedies, but those are comedic performances. Sort of, that he has given.
Yeah.
So yeah,
very much so.
Interesting.
Tarantino, by the way, similar thing. What did he say recently about it's just the same thing Scorsese said, just in different words. It was just like I think he's like, I can't wait for us to get out of the worst era of Hollywood cinema ever. Talking about right now.
Yeah. Well, okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially since COVID, it's hard to argue we've been in any sort of golden age of theatrical releases. But with Tarantino, it's just a little harder to fit him with the snobbery sash. Sure. It doesn't fit. It doesn't rest on his head as well.
He is a snob, though.
Yes, he is, but he's too weird.
Yeah.
Like he's not a pointy-headed snob. That Scorsese can go in the I don't know. He doesn't wear ascots, but he could pull one off. If he so desired, he can float in those crowds. Whereas Tarantino is more on the slob side of things, even as much as his tastes are probably even more judgmental and snobby in some ways, but they're lowbrow. Scorsese is highbrow. That's why he sort of takes some of this heat, I guess.
But I don't know. I mean, I've heard Scorsese, like I see an engaged creator, when I see him talking, even about Marvel films as they make him do. I see somebody who's watching modern stuff, watching international cinema, and kind of like changing as a result. He says, what do you call? He was saying Ari Aster films were a huge influence on Killers of the Flower Moon. I find that fascinating, and I can kind of see what he means.
I actually can see that.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Love that he's.
If I ever do revisit Killers of the Flower Moon, that's the thing that has the best chance, maybe, of like reframing it for me, of like viewing this as more of akin to a Midsommar.
It is a little, though. I mean, I get what he means, and I'm just like, yeah, you are. You're still taking cues from the youths, the new kids. So look, I've said some things about how I wasn't crazy about Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm super happy it exists, and we're just not going to have films like this like at all going forward. Is my guess for a while at least. So no, I disagree. Yeah. I like I like where Scorsese's at right now. Even as I see the casting decisions being an issue, you're right, sure, but it's a company, it's a collective of artists kind of thing at this point. They have a working relationship. It's part of the charm that DiCaprio is playing this role he shouldn't be playing.
Yeah, maybe that's how I should try and look at it. Is more of it's a theatrical company he's put together, and you just whatever next season's show is, you're gonna you're not gonna.
This time, DiCaprio will play Lear this year. Finally, right. People have been asking, when will he play Lear? Yes.
Yeah, we're not going to do nationwide casting calls to find Prospero. We're just going to use the best piece we have on hand. But I don't know. That's just...
It's old school, too.
There's so much effort in every other aspect of the movie and the production and all this stuff that... And like you said, up to a point, it is really commendable that he is 80 years old and stretching himself in these other ways. And then there's this one way where he's really not stretching himself in a way that, maybe I'm oversensitive to and making too much out of, but it really sort of poisons the well of his other, probably valid criticisms of different types of filmmaking.
No, I mean, it's the same. I get that. I bet at the same time, like he doesn't have to be the vanguard. I think for him, and again, like, they knew that Jesse Plemons should have played that character to start with.
Yeah, it's not like you could say he didn't know better because it was there.
Yeah, They get it. They probably needed the lead actor to be a movie star. The guy that they were going to put on posters. You can't have the Killer of Flowers Moon poster with Jesse Plemons' face on it. Especially that poster, which is a terrible poster. But it's all face.
But a good poster wasn't going to turn this movie's finances around.
Well, as it turns out, no. And it should have been Plemons, I think, artistically. Yeah. But, I don't think it gets made at all, if that's the case. The math does not favor that film happening. But maybe,
it didn't favor the one that did happen.
Maybe he should make this for $40 million. And Exactly. It doesn't have the giant tracking shots, and it's not 3.5 hours long. Maybe that's how you get the better version of it. I don't know. Like, he has reached a sort of place where he kind of has last say on that. And, I'm sure you don't get to where Martin Scorsese is if, you're not forceful in asserting what you want. So, who's going to tell him, no, you can have $40 million to do this?
Well, you'd have to be a real asshole, like me, to tell him, no, Martin Scorsese, you cannot put Robert De Niro in your movie. To a lesser degree, no, you cannot put Leonardo DiCaprio. You have to be a fool, financially speaking, to say, no, you cannot put Leonardo DiCaprio in your movie. However, I think the last couple movies have been very ill served by having him cast as pets in that way. And it's never not complicated because, it's The Irishman, I think, for as much as I think it's sort of an abomination and the De Niro performance is all wrong and kind of scuttles the whole movie, there's also this incredible Joe Pesci performance in there.
You don't like the De Niro performance?
I don't think I do. I mean, I'd have to revisit it, but it's 4 goddamn hours long.
That's the other part. I mean, if it were that, or if it were the old man fight scenes in Irishman, maybe I would have got back to it by now. But all of it together has kept me away. And is that a problem though? Is it? I mean, no. I guess I'd rather I liked it as much as Goodfellas. Sure, of course.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Well, and I don't think that I like Pacino in The Irishman is the thing.
Oh, he's great. He's great in it. He's so much. What do you want from him at this point? Come on.
I just want somebody who's 40 to play Hoffa instead of somebody who's 78. Like what? This was not a strange thing to ask for in 2019. Mm-hmm.
He was also he's much older than Hoffa was when he died.
Right.
Yeah, that one makes no sense actually.
And Pesci's really good. I guess Pesci is less, his performance is less encumbered by the CGI de-aging stuff. He doesn't have to do those action scenes.
He just seems like a very old man the whole way through the movie.
Not to get down too in the weeds on that one Irishman ass-kicking scene that just kind of ruins it. But
why would you keep that in the film, man?
Yeah. I would have sworn that Scorsese had the filmmaking ability to make, without any de-aging stuff involved, just make a scene of a 90-year-old man beating somebody up cinematically feel more believable than that. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't need to stay on a wide shot of this creaky flailing.
You can cast a young man and just, cover his face with Robert De Niro's old man face, young man, or whatever he is at that point.
Yeah, or you cast a young man entirely and just have one actor play old version and one actor play young version, as movies have done for 100 years. Like, I don't know. Okay, so look, I've done my rant on that. That's fine. The only other thing about Killers of the Flower Moon I think to get into is the very ending.
Yes,
and this, the Scorsese cameo. I rolled my eyes on this pretty hard, but it seems to have really worked for a lot of people.
I'm surprised at the reaction it got, honestly. It didn't move the needle much either way for me. I was kind of just like, there's Marty. Okay. And Jack White. I kind of like, okay, it's a true crime. Crime is entertainment. Oh, okay. All right. That's how I felt about it. It was just like, I don't, not strongly at all in any way. It's fine. It's not what the movie's really about, but it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't seeing his face where I was like, oh, God, here we go. It was more, it's the last thing he reads with the somber accounting of how Molly died when she was 20 years older. And like the obituary made no reference to the murders, he says very solemnly. And I'm like, in my head, it's like he's turning to the camera and going like, but I sure did. Right? Like, I told you what's up. And I'm like, and then I'm like thinking like, but also like, do you want your obituary when you die in your 50s to be all about the murders of your family when you were in your 20s? Like, I don't want that leading my obituary.
Don't worry. They made a whole movie about it several years later. So now that's the obituary.
And the movie's patting itself on the back for existing there because nobody paid attention to this. But in the middle of the conceit of the Winchester cigarettes sponsored a radio show in the 50s going over this. I'm like, I mean, can you say in the course of a national radio show at a time when there was a monoculture and radio was the only game in town, that it's such a tragedy that no one ever talks about this thing that we are talking about on the biggest platform in the world right now? Like, I don't know. I'm thinking like, I'll consider it a miracle if my own family mentions my name 20 years after I die, much less putting it on the radio. It felt like patting himself on the back was my gripe with it.
I don't know. I think it's part of just like it's tying the thing into sort of a historical context of this is, the only way that we really come to understand these crimes is, when they are artistically represented years later, like
or packaged for entertainment.
Yes. That seems to be, what he's getting at with it. And I can appreciate that as an interesting point. I don't think it's necessarily what this film has been about. This has been about the banality of pure evil, I guess would be the simplest way to explain what the film is. And that this is sort of an adjacent thing, just sort of a, and also, crime is packaged for consumption in this country. And I'm not uninterested in that.
Yeah, and Scorsese actually maybe makes a good mouthpiece for that because he has been a big purveyor of the packaging of crime for consumption over the last 50 years.
Oh, well, yes.
But then that clashes with the solemn tone. It doesn't seem like he's implicating himself there. It seems,
he is.
It struck me as congratulating himself for telling the real story here. And look at, like, actually, as you laid that out, I kind of see, okay, my whatever about the effects of radio in the 50s and all that aside, like, yeah, generally this thematically, this is a forgotten crime that, had to be unearthed a century almost later. The book came out earlier, but largely forgotten. And that fits kind of thematically. And actually it's even better, maybe with all the stuff you just laid out, makes me think even better of it, about packaging tragedy for entertainment and all that. It just makes, again, another miscast role. It makes Scorsese himself the worst mouthpiece for delivering that message, in my opinion. Just let Jack White deliver that. I don't know who else we have. Jason Isbell. What other musicians could we have? Sturgill Simpson was in here, I think.
He was in there, yeah. He's in like everything nowadays.
Let Nico Case read that last paragraph. I don't care.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
anybody but the filmmaker himself would avoid the self-congratulatory feeling. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know. Like it's an odd moment. It's a little I don't know. It reminded me a little of the end of Inglourious Bastards, to speak of Tarantino again, which is also meta self-congratulation in a sense.
Again, but that's cheekiness.
More overtly. Yeah. More explicit and cheeky. It's true. I like, it works.
Yeah, that's straight braggadocio. He's not congratulating himself for illuminating the tragedy of the Holocaust in a new way. He's just saying, like,
I made a kick-ass one, didn't I?
This is a fucking banger, right?
But that is a film. That is a film that I'm gonna watch and remember 1,000 times more than I am Killers of the Flower Moon. I would, of course, to compare directly. I don't know. I think it's taking on some of the same stuff in a little ways, just in the way that that entertainment becomes a window into the past, and that's sort of how we view it. That's the whole thing. Yeah, like the old one being Shakespeare's Richard III is just a hatchet job, but is now how everyone understands that person to be. So I mean, they're kind of dancing around the same thing there. Yeah.
The similarity to Bastards, I think, is bending historical, like, genocidal tragedy toward pulpier crime or war
into an entertainment
tropes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so much less entertaining. I mean, this strike, I was thinking less of Inglourious Bastards and more of 12 Years a Slave when I watched this. Like, that's another movie that's hard to say this is a bad movie, particularly because there's no bad performance to point at there. Like, I can
that's for sure.
Just kick DiCaprio around for this one. But it's like, well, that might have been a masterpiece, but I'm probably never going to sit through it again because it's just so long and punishing. And it's like, what's the time?
Well, I mean,
on a Wednesday night, I'm just going to be like, yeah, now's the time to go back to this.
I watched Schindler's List myself again, like about a week and a half ago. My wife had never seen it. And I was like, oh, we got to watch Schindler's List. And she was like, why? And I was like, well, it's really good. It's really well made. And so we did. And it's a similar thing in a way. It is the packaging of something horrible as an entertainment. And that's like a weirdly very entertaining movie. Like, as Spielberg as a craftsman, I don't know. I feel like I just opened a much bigger door here at the end of this episode. No. But
don't worry, I can slam it shut for us by just confessing to you, I've never seen Schindler's List all the way through.
Okay, fair enough.
That's a gap in my cultural knowledge.
It's intense,
but it strikes me that Spielberg is also just so much. His filmmaking style is like he has to really suppress his entertainer instincts. His
That's the push and pull of Schindler's List the whole way through. It's like, yeah, exactly. How entertaining can this story be? How entertaining should it be? If it grips you and you are, emotionally, ruptured by the events on it, isn't that in a way a form of entertainment? Those are conversations Schindler's List isn't necessarily trying to have, but I think Killers of the Flower Moon is. I think, you
can tie yourself in knots about that stuff, but I kind of feel like you still got to do whatever you got to do to engage the audience with the tragedy, because if it's just lying there on screen, it's very unpleasant. You could ruin somebody's day, but it's not necessarily going to stick with them in a way that I think Schindler's List probably stuck with a lot of people more than 12 Years a Slave did.
Yeah. I mean, it
has more entertaining elements
for sure. But I mean, it's birds of a feather, though. I mean, sure. I think inherently, 12 Years a Slave cannot escape being a movie that is supposed to engage you emotionally, like it's not a documentary. It is, and even a documentary is telling a story. So yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I'm actually thinking even more better of I'm thinking better of Killers of the Flower Moon now myself as well. I'm thinking maybe there's a little more to this. I would like to watch it again, but it's so fucking long is the thing.
Right.
So I don't know when I will.
It's good to schedule your week around it, not just one night. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've taken my shots at Scorsese. I'm sure he'll come back at me any day now.
I was glad
on Twitter. He's a prolific tweeter, right? I'm sure.
I am.
Anyway,
they'll talk to him about this. I mean, he'll be on the red carpets for this film. He's doing an Oscar run before this movie wins nothing. Except maybe Lily Gladstone. Lily Gladstone might win something.
Yeah, she's very good.
Mm-hmm.
She deserves to win, and all the production stuff, any technical awards, totally worth it. Just if they, doesn't Golden Globes do like an ensemble cast award?
That's SAG, I believe. Screen Actors
SAG.
Guild. Yeah.
Well, if the Razzies did an ensemble cast
award,
then
everyone's good in this except DiCaprio.
Well, you're right. De Niro's good, but miscast.
Mm-hmm.
Scorsese is miscast and delivering one line, but kind of crucially to my mind. I don't know. You made me soften slightly on that. Just that whole conceit. Again, I don't think he's the right person for it, but whatever.
It's not a slam dunk. I mean, I don't think it's a perfect ending by any means. It's kind of an interesting one. That's all.
Well, thank you for listening to my weird, anxious rants about how Scorsese is responsible for keeping American culture mired in the 20th century when we should be blazing a trail forward.
And my desperate apologies for an auteur that I love. Yeah.
Yeah. We might, who knows? We might get around to all of Scorsese's someday.
Maybe. Yeah.
But first we got more mansplaining to do. So we'll be back at you with some Michael Mann sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody. Hit the rate and review button, please. And thank you.